So now we are live. We already had a in-depth discussion about IoT and co-living. So I just want to give a short intro where I am sitting right now and why I'm sitting here. So I'm in Berlin right now, and in the call we have also Loic. In Malta we have Nathaniel Amranian. You're right now in Canada?
Yes, Montreal.
Yeah, we have also Stefan in the call, who was living with me in the living communities some years ago. That's quite interesting. We have one ambassador, David from Nairobi, and Alberto and Sarah, and Alex, which is a co-working / co-living provider from Italy and Switzerland. So yeah, I'm sitting here because we met in a hostel where Minot is staying. She's part of CoCoHub. And there's a space which looks like a co-working space. And there are 7 people right now with a laptop, even though it's a hostel. The thing is, every now and then they decide to play loud music for like 10 seconds. So this is a big no-no for a place where people want to work. So I had to leave and sit outside in the cold. And this shows that sometimes only a small twist is needed when you want to make a hostel suitable for remote workers. And this is also what Loic said when he came to Malta, because we met as a guest 2.5 years ago. And he said, I don't understand this concept of co-living. Like, this is just like a hostel for nerds. This is what Loic said, and I kind of felt like attacked, because for me it was like, no, that's something different. But now the whole COVID crisis shows us we have a lot of empty properties looking.
We don't hear you.
Yeah, I think it froze there.
Yeah,
It froze?
it's because you are in a hostel and not in co-living.
Yeah.
that's the reason.
Yeah. Can you hear me again?
Yes.
Yes.
It's fine.
Okay.
I can hear you.
And like sometimes only there's a small twist necessary, maybe an additional Wi-Fi router, a different communication, and out of a sudden it would be suitable. Are you with me?
Oh, he's back. So your mic, Daniel, is not on, so you can continue now.
Yes, I am back. So now I moved inside, and this is like
There you go.
perfect,
Nice
perfect scenario. What is happening in a normal hostel, or if you decide to stay in accommodation, which is not geared towards remote workers. Internet is not stable, so we use it as a good example. And yeah, and this is one thing. So now, due to the COVID pandemic, we have a lot of properties which would be suitable for nomads, and the demand is so huge. The problem is actually the booking. We have a lot of people who say, hey, I'm looking for a co-living, but the offers are not out there. And if they are out there, it's really hard actually to inquire and to do the actual transaction of paying. So we were looking for a long time for a booking provider who can solve this problem, just like Airbnb. So normally we could assume, hey, we just use Airbnb and we welcome nomads. But the time has shown this is not working out, because you have all kinds of people applying to be in your space. And sometimes they are just looking for a cheap place to stay. So, and luckily we came across Anyplace. And today Nathaniel is speaking in the name of Anyplace. And they claim to solve this problem of doing the transaction and also doing the vetting or / interviews of potential co-livers. So maybe you can just give a short introduction to Anyplace and your person.
Sure, sure. So my name is Nathaniel, and I've been with Anyplace. I'm the director of partnerships here, and I've been with the company for 2 years. Before that, I was at Booking.com for over 7 years. So coming into Anyplace, I was already looking at the lack of technological support and framework for what we were calling the extended stay market. So anything 30 night plus. So my lens was entirely hospitality. So I was really eager to jump the bandwagon. It was an exciting product. I love the name. I love the teammates. The philosophy of our company was fully remote. We're about 20 some odd people now working across the world between Berlin, Tel Aviv, Mumbai, Canada, Florida, Mexico City. So these are our daily meetings happen like that. And it's been a blast ever since. And as Daniel was saying, I was going to call you me new Daniel, but I think what we're trying to again is really the booking process, and there's a lot we still have to solve for. But one thing for sure, look to create a booking process that we can call instantaneous, because we know that's what people want. They want to. What's the word I'm looking for? They want to approach and purchase a living product today as they would hospitality, such as being on Airbnb or on Booking.com, as they would tourism. This is where we're seeing the evolution of consumer behavior in general. So what Booking is trying to do is take it an extra step. Whereas our other marketplaces do not vet for the clients, we take care of the whole vetting process for our clients. We take care of the whole payment processing. There's also a lot of education. As ourselves, we didn't necessarily come into this business saying co-living was what we wanted to do, but it ended up being such a match to our philosophy already that it's become a big part of our business. And we believe that there will be more people coming into the space from a more of a hybrid approach, or from the tourism industry going into the middle term market, who are going to continue to want to focus on this segment. So what we do is we simplify that whole process for our partners, and we simplify the process for the guest in making it clear for them, transparent information. There's no hidden surprises. We take care of, in the US, squatter rights is a big concern. We've managed to address that issue. Another big concern is rate parity. A lot of websites like Airbnb charge the client. We didn't feel that this was right. And in some markets, when you're hitting the 30-night model, it's not really something you can actually do. That would make you a broker, which is not what we're trying to achieve. So we didn't think it was fair to charge clients for housing. Is really one of the important values that we have, is to make sure that we're offering the best rate to our clients and the best experience, and then the best process for our partners, that we have a quality guest. They don't have to worry about who we sent them. We know what your needs were before we set you live. And that's it. And then we try to find technology to make it easier and faster, and using apps and using the desktop, and we're getting better and better at that every day.
Thank you. So you mentioned some points where I can could continue right now. So when we started, it was 4 years ago. So it was not really called co-living, but what we witnessed was a clash of the definition, what should co-living be? So we have this traditional European definition, because the first houses, they popped up in Europe or popped up in North Africa, but led by Germans. And we have this culture of shared living since a long time, since 60, 70 years. So I was living in a living community, and we had a rental agreement which was 40 years old. So this is already a thing that people go actively into a living community because it's a lifestyle choice. Not only because they want to save money, because they see the benefits. Usually when you start studying or you move to a new city, you go for a living community to have a circle of friends, and also to have an active life, to go out with people. And this is something which is already existing. Out of a sudden, we explored the possibilities of marketing, and we kind of want to scale this model of shared living into the whole world. And we have the American definition and we have our definition. And somewhere in the middle, we want to meet, because our model is not scalable. Because if I would like to move into a living community here in Berlin right now, it would take me probably a whole week of going to castings, being the funny guy, and competing against 100 other people. So this is too much effort. Like, I organize such living community castings on my own. It's a lot of fun, but it's too much effort for me now. If I just want to stay 1 month here. So this is not an option. So yeah, what drives us is to find a middle way here.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a question then for you. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, ask the question, that's it.
I'm very interested by, I've never heard somebody define that the European co-living community definition versus the US, and I believe there's even more breakdowns there. Do you think that the European co-living community is more designed for the traveling nomad, that because of Schengen creates that opportunity to drift around and be a nomad amongst different cultures in a way that you could really be a traveling nomad?
Definitely. So the co-living industry in Europe is mainly destinational. So people go to Mallorca, they go to Marrakesh and stay there for a month. This is where, yeah, I think this is the co-living definition per se. But we are doing this since since a long time, 50, 60 years, and it was called shared living. And this, in my opinion, is more like the American definition. So you opt in for this lifestyle because you know there are benefits, and maybe also because the real estate market is too tight, it's too expensive. And this is exactly why we started this since a long time ago. But also at one point when you are 26, you move out because it's too much hassle for you. You need to organize the cleaning, you need to take responsibility, and people are no longer willing to take responsibility legally and care about small things which should be automated or be taken care of. So yeah, we also had a small preparation talk before, and then we were just thinking what would happen if an American operator would come and say, let's go big in Germany. Because the demand is clearly there. And I think this company would burn because we are also pretty sensible to how much life should be commercial. And it's like a holy grail. And I think this needs to be on point. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. How in America's defense, there are different. I would say there's a big schism between what is co-living on the East Coast and what is co-living on the West Coast in California. They're completely different models, and they're completely different approaches to co-living. Perhaps the California model might be a little bit more similar to the European model. But definitely, just within the U.S., I don't think that the two products are generally very similar at all. I mean, some of the biggest players in the industry, I think of, they're moving out west. They're going to get there, but they've started out east. Quarters is a great example. Their model fits right now much stronger on the East Coast, and that's where their base is in the U.S. Whereas in the West Coast, I think they're still kind of figuring out how they're going to approach that.
You know, I have to think back to my time studying in Germany, and one of the things that I noticed, I was an international student, so I was really involved in that ecosystem. And in Europe, you mentioned, Nathaniel, you were talking about the Schengen zone, and I think maybe even more important for this age group of young people from 18 to 26, like Daniel was saying, is also this Erasmus exchange program, where you can go to any university in any city in Europe that is a partner of your university, which is basically all of them. And the European Union will give you money for travel and language courses, and maybe you get a scholarship from the National Agency for Students or something. And one of the interesting patterns I found in that city where I lived, in Weimar, was that there were lots and lots and lots of these Wohngemeinschaften, these co-living spaces. And there was always, like in all of them, there was one room just for Erasmus students. And these people, like the Germans would live there for, 3 or 4 or 6 years, depending on how long they studied. And they would always get this new impulse of one guest from, Spain or the UK or Norway coming in, bringing in their culture. And we had just this great fluid community of meeting new people, learning about new cultures. And I think that, these micro spaces, those are the things that, like Daniel was saying, that's never going to work with a giant operator. You got to have these people that know stuff about the place.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And I think like putting a software or depending on the way of doing like IT with this kind of micro space or spaces, I think it could also kill the community aspect. And that's where people needs to be smart. Like if they want to bring IT into this kind of spaces, it also can burn the community itself, because sometimes it's nice when it's just out of control of something bigger.
It's true. Like, how much do you lose your authenticity if you yeah, I see it. If you would have an app.
Yeah, but on the other end, for example, like I was listening to your introduction, Nathaniel, and then I thought about my experience, about my use case, which is that like I went on the website and like I was thinking maybe that could be nice also to be able to find a location depending on the mood. Like if I'm in the mood of front-end development or software programming, maybe I can find a space which is with this tag or with this sticker, this label. And I think also that's part of the different communities or co-living to have specialization,
a niche.
having like a specific niche, and being able to travel also depending on this, it can help you to join different communities. Maybe I will need during my year like to do 1 month of self-development yoga, and I want to be in this kind of community. But
I need that.
but then like I'm not all year long into the yoga community. I want to switch from different communities.
Right.
So that's also my point. It's hard to be in only one community, and you can't be in too many communities because then like it's not a community anymore. And yeah, I think it's nice to be able to jump in and jump out of different communities.
So Loic, what you mentioned now is like the educational aspect of co-living. You looking for new energy, new inputs, new knowledge. So this makes sense. But at one point, the problem of finding accommodation is maybe more important. So maybe we will also see like a switch. Maybe in the beginning, people look for new knowledge and new input, and they go into theme topic related co-livings. For example, what helped us in Malta is for the first year, we positioned ourselves as a co-living for blockchain people. So this was pretty helpful. So, but the question is now, what brings the big move in the co-living industry? What is the next big thing? Where will it come from? Nathaniel, what do you think?
Yeah. I think, first of all, I love everything. Loic, you like brought up like 3 points that are so interesting already. And just from that, so you had said, I'm not sure how the technology can create even further isolation. So in certain circumstances, yes, right? But in those circumstances, the technology might not have much to solve for. If there's a house with 6 people, I don't think the technology is going to be that necessary to solve on communication. But if you're in a house of 50 people or a co-living of 50 people, that technology can actually serve a lot in bringing and developing a community. If it's, I know some co-living brands like Venn Co-living, they create an app and a software, kind of like WeWork was trying to do something similar, right? By creating an online community of workers to share ideas. And what it does is that, we saw this in hospitality, like clients were kind of like hypocrites, right? We want the best of both worlds. We want a community when I feel like it, and I want to have my own toilet. Leave me alone, right? That's for sure is the future right there. I think it's all about how to address. COVID has said, we don't want to be alone, but don't use my bathroom. And it's true, because you need, in certain ways, we need a certain amount of privacy and isolation, but we want to have access to that community. And particularly in a living community, boundaries are so important in what the community is. And something we spoke about with Daniel earlier was, vetting who comes into my community, interviewing the community. And from a marketer, I'm always sweating bullets when I have to speak to someone doing that, because I'm like, how am I going to tell this to my applicant? How are we going to make this not discriminatory? How is it clear? And what I found is that the co-living communities that are focused on the niche communities are actually less discriminatory, because they make their MO clear. Our community is catered to hackers. Our community is catered to artists. Our community is catered to people in the sciences. At least we're not so focused on the individual, but on what the individual needs and what they're focused on. So we address how we want to build this community, but at the same time, not being open to the diversity of this community. Like I think Daniel was saying, you have somebody coming in that one person was coming into that, what was it, the Schengen room you were calling it? Sorry, I can't remember. But, that person is probably coming to the community, and maybe they're not there for a lot, but they're adding a lot of diversity to that community for that time being. And you can't really know who's going to be a real good fit, really, in a community. But in the future, I think we're going to see a lot of people figuring out new business models, first of all, to survive. There's going to be a big obstacle for co-living operators, the master lease versus the revenue share. It's going to be finding the right inventory. How do we create an, intimate, I think in the Netherlands, they always use this word, gezellig. It's something always, it's got to be cozy, but, but people need their privacy. And then something that was coming up in the hotel industry already was something called collective isolation. And we go back to the youth hostels. I think, again, of Citizen M is always my favorite example, because so many people go there now just for the co-working aspect. And there's so many people sitting in these spaces in hotels that were inspired from the youth hostel movement, where the rooms are small, private, clean, yet the public spaces are huge, not necessarily for interaction if you want, but also a place where I can do my work, put my headphones on, and be around people. We know that people's sense of community is not just interacting in a community, it's being around like-minded people or on a certain mission, and being around them is already just creating that community. So creating spaces that are flexible is super important in the future. We're going to see transition into commercial residential spaces coming up very soon, as office buildings are already contacting. I know a very known design firm in Paris that does a lot of co-living has already been contacted by many commercial operators. Hey, what are we going to do to our office buildings in downtown? So the future of co-living and living is kind of heading there. We already see a huge player in the service apartment industry called Sonder. They have literally said, we have access to now 20,000 rooms in big cities because we're going to be working on developing these mixed use spaces with in office towers. So I don't know if that answers your question about the future, but I think that's where we're heading. It's I need a bit of my privacy. Community has to have clear rules that are non-discriminatory, and just being discriminatory is super important today. Make sure that you're open to different people, but focusing on the niche will protect that, creating the community you want.
Can I bounce off that for a second, Nathaniel? Sure. I was thinking about what you said about how we want to be able to trust people when we meet them. There's this concept called TOFU, trust on first use, from cryptography, where you come across somebody you don't know and immediately you want to trust them, right? So you develop a kind of relationship and a contact, and you get a first feeling about this person. And sometimes, in my experience, sometimes it's not enough. And I guess what I would recommend, if you're thinking about how can we leverage software in this kind of ecosystem, I really think that the model that I think it's called friend of a friend, where if I have a friend who also knows this person, then that person can give me a reference. I mean, it's kind of also modeled on how the industry works and how friendships are made, you know? And I think as organizers of co-working spaces, having access to some kind of review of these people that are applying to come to your place can, I mean, obviously there's risks of privacy and stuff like that, but I think it can be useful when you're trying to estimate whether or not someone is going to be a good fit. You know, if they've never been at any co-working space before and they're 16 years old, well, maybe you want to have an interview. But if they've been to 20 different co-working spaces and everybody says they're awesome, then obviously you'd love to have them too. You know, I think there's a gradient there, and I think that kind of gradient can be useful when you're trying to do this kind of machine analysis, whether someone's going to be a good fit.
That's a good example of a vetting process that's non-discriminatory by really basing it on experience. Yeah. Actually. And age is a discrimination sometimes where on youth, where you want to make sure there's a certain maturity level. That's fair enough. That is one of the few I've seen in the industry that we've been able to also accept. But sometimes, you know, the opposite, you know, we have, you know, what about the older people coming into co-living? How does that work? You know?
Yeah, I'll be there soon.
No.
But I want to add something here, because this is something what Loic and me discussed pretty often. So we always take Malta as an example, a small little island, and then we have our assumptions there and we scale it up to the whole world. So we were like, in 2 years, we will have 10 co-livings in Malta and everyone will compete. So we have 10 people competing. Does this make sense? And does it make sense to have 10 people, 10 companies trying to create secluded communities? Does this make sense? Because in the end, it just makes sense if everyone works together. So right now we have this thinking that we have a house, a property, and there's a one-to-one relationship between the community and the house. And of course, this is the concept of CoCoHub. So, but like, it's just logical thinking to fuse those communities, because in the end, everyone is just happier. So how do you see this? In the moment, everyone is trying to create a secluded community, but I don't see this working out in the future. If we have 10 houses in a radius of 2 kilometers, like there will be a player floating above this. Also, what Daniel said about we need data in order to figure out if co-livers are actually a fit into a community. We need to gather this data. And who owns also this? That's also a question. There's so much like coming up in the future. Yeah, this is not a question, we're just thoughts.
I mean, I don't see I mean, are the 10 co-living places really working? They can be independently run, but what's, you know, there's still, if you're still in the same, particularly in a region like Malta, where it makes sense if, you know, each one, well, you guys will end up knowing each other well. I mean, there's no reason why, you know, the 2 coffee shops, you know, one specializing in espresso, one specializing in filter coffee, you know, why they can cooperate together while still being independent businesses.
Exactly. So the question is, do you think we will first go for volume, that we will have a lot of co-living operators who are doing the same, who are not focusing on specific niches, and then later see the diversification? Or do you think that diversification will happen first and then we will go for volume? Or will it happen at the same time?
I think it'll happen at the same time. Yeah. Yeah, I think it should happen. I mean, I think it depends on their process, really. But it depends on who's met on the priorities of the co-living operator. I mean, if this goes back to which lens you have, so that the co-living has the lens of a community, has a lens of a real estate business, and has a lens of also sometimes a hybrid hospitality business too for certain rooms as well. So, and they all have different approaches to business. One is customer centric, one is maximizing square footage, and one is on building a long-term community. And that all of those can sometimes already be in conflict in a way.
I see, I see. And what are your insights? Because right now we have like 10 ambassadors, and most of them, they have their own co-living properties. And of course, we are in close contact with them, and they tell us how much they are struggling because of COVID.
Right.
What are your insights here? Which role does COVID play in this whole co-living movement? Because before it all started, there was so much investment going into this. I had the feeling it's a bubble, it's driven by investment and not really by demand.
Right.
So now we have like a bumper, like a stop. And what do you think are the effects of COVID onto the industry, on the industry?
Domestic travel. If you don't have a domestic strategy and how you define it, because again, in Europe, what's domestic can be seen differently. You know, you can say that the U.S. is a form of Schengen, right? It's got 50 states, each one with their own regionalization and climate. So there's an example there. So I think focusing your markets on, you know, on your clientele, and hey, okay, if I'm in the U.S., I need to focus on the U.S. right now and build, and there's options for that. If I'm in Italy, I need to focus on Schengen right now, because that's where people can come in easily, and we have, hopefully, I'm not even sure if that's true anymore, but generally speaking, you know. And the other is the reconciling what everybody's been talking about, the need for to be everybody's feeling isolated, so they want community, but we still need to have privacy. So it's all going to be, I think, about addressing those concerns to people. And there's obviously limitations with COVID right now. You know, if we're in the middle, it's going to go up and down a lot. So being ready for the future and future behaviors is really important. So I think there's so many theories of what's going to happen. Some people are like, oh, things will never be the same again, or this will take this many years. I think the most important thing is to start segmenting your product for the future, to be ready for these different segments that may or may not emerge, but they could all emerge. You know, some people say we might be in an economic depression for years. Some people say that, you know, the second this is over, we could turn into the roaring 20s. And I know that I spoke to my spouse and I, who have been sitting in our home, I think we realized that I think we might want to do our own thing for 6 months, and I think I need to go west. I think I need to go east. So I don't know myself what type of, you know, feeling people will be in, or where we might be able to go. But we definitely have to see this as the grocery store. And if you don't have the product on the shelves, when the lights come back on, you're not going to be ready. It's going to happen fast. That's what we for sure anticipate. Consumer behavior it'll happen really, really quickly when it comes back. So it's really about making sure that all your aisles are full and your product is on the shelf, and that you've got 3 different kinds of, I'm sorry, I'm being cheesy here, but 3 different kinds of peanut butter, because you're not sure right now after COVID what kind of peanut butter people are going to want anymore, you know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't help but just find the whole thing amusing. I specialize in dealing with uncertainty, being a risk manager.
Okay, so
I just think it's funny
all about this.
So yeah, I was actually thinking of asking, like, how do you deal with, or how have you dealt with uncertainty in these industries in the past? Since there are always things that can happen, you know, even without COVID, and that will appear in the future.
I can add something here. Sorry, Nathaniel, speak. No, we started as a co-living provider. Like, we had our own little house, which was 400 years old, in Malta. So we've been there, done that, really from the start, for 16 people. And there's so much uncertainty involved in the whole business, because in the end it's hospitality, but you do it for a reason, because you want to be surrounded by like-minded people. But the whole package, what you need to take care of, is so much overhead you don't want to take care of. And I hope technology will solve this, but right now you need to face the uncertainty. It starts from, I was sitting every morning 2 hours there just to organize the inquiries, prepare invoices and send them out. Let alone this is not solved. There are some booking systems, they claim that they solve this, but they don't. I looked at all of them. So really the basics. Yeah, and I just hope technology will help in the long run. But it's right now it's a hard business. Also, the people who are just starting out the co-living spaces, it's hard. You need to be the mama of the space.
It's very minimal, huh? So not how is there a lot? Are there a lot of challenges in terms of things like getting appropriate insurance for it?
I think in the end it's a hospitality business, so there is no difference. But like the regulations are not there yet. Like in Malta, if you want to do this, you are somewhere operating in a gray area because the regulations are not there. Is it like they call it a short let or like a long let? It's something in between.
Yeah.
So you operate in a kind of gray area. And I mean, we want to do this in countries which are really affordable, like in India. And then you, additionally to a lot of uncertainty, you add this. So,
Yeah, yeah. And I think from an operator versus a marketer, there's different ways that you're going to prepare yourself for the uncertainty. For us, it's kind of litmus testing what people are wanting, right? So we're testing out different kinds of inventory. You know, like I was saying, there's a lot of people going to be coming into this co-living space or middle term extended stay rental space. So there's a lot of opportunity for operators to create, I think, alliances and partnerships that are economically stable for them because of this time, and that will at the same time open the door to new types of inventory, because there's a lot of operators right now who are really trying to figure out a new model, and the co-living model has a huge opportunity for them. So I think the marriage of ideas really of people who are in the co-living and who want to be able to attract management with these furnished apartments or studio rentals, they're a lot of the future inventory there. There's going to be a lot of change in the inventory in the market. And one of the things that might happen is the way people travel in general might reflect closer to the digital nomad, not necessarily calling it that. But are people going to travel for longer periods of time to less places to get to know things, taking things slowly? You know, is this going to be a backlash, you know, to maybe it's my own personal wishes to, you know, we've been everything about travel the past 3 or 4 years has been about Instagramming everything. You know, it's like, it's, you know, it's about quick consumption. And yeah, exactly. Taking a photo. I went to the Louvre. I took the Mona Lisa, and then I went there, and then went there, and then you know, and then co-living is now, all right, I'm going to hang out in one place. I'm going to discover this coffee shop for a month. So maybe it's a step back to the way things used to be, as well in the travel industry. But we have to assume that we're going to know is silly, because even we all thought we were going to love working from home for the rest of our lives. And I think now 6 months into it, I think some people are ready to move on.
Yeah, like, and I also want to say that uncertainty also, it's also the engine of the best ideas, because we are uncertain.
Absolutely.
We are adapting ourselves and we are trying new things. And this industry, like co-living, is also new, like since 2 or 3 years. Like I remember Daniel told me 3 years ago or 4 years ago, like if now you are writing content about co-living, you can become the next worldwide consultant about co-living in 1 year, because there is no one, there is no operator, there was no industry, it was new. So we were uncertain, but on the other hand, like it was like freestyle for all the creativity. And also I want to add something about the behavior of the customers. Is like the example is co-working spaces. Before, like everyone was super happy to be in an open space and share all the space with all the people. But now we just see that like no one wants to go to the open space because it's boring and you just want to have your bit of privacy. So like I think its behavior is changing quite fast, and the goal is to find solutions which are not changing the behavior too much, just adapting on it and just like follow it.
And also one thing about uncertainty, the biggest problem is how to find customers and how to get your values across. This takes time. It took me every morning writing one Instagram post for 4 years, 1,300 days of waking up and communicating our values. At the same time, you take care of a house and you are the social alpha. Who can do this? So just
The
like,
social alpha?
yeah, you need to be the social alpha. You know, you have different people and you need to be smart enough how to combine them and not make them fight. But then like, just like Airbnb changed how small holiday accommodations find their customers, they don't have to look anymore. Someone is sending them the clients. And we need this because it's not existing. So there are certain platforms, they claim that they send you customers, they don't. So I hope Anyplace can solve this. This is also uncertainty. If you need to do your own marketing worldwide because you want to attract the people from all over the world, how do you do this? And then it's just a numbers game. You have 500 providers and they're all fighting on Facebook. We are the best. We are the best. What a waste of energy if we just should join forces and the demand is big enough. Like right now, like it hurts. We have 1,100 people. They said they want to experience co-living. And they were signing up during this pandemic right now in the last 3 months. But we don't have enough options where we can send them. There is no way how to send 1,100 people to places because we did our research and maybe there are only 15 co-living spaces in Europe, which I would recommend to my friends. So this is where we are standing. The industry is not that big. I mean, there are commercial players, surely, but still we are super early. And now this research, which we did during the COVID times, because we set up like a COVID rescue campaign, we are pretty.
And I have a question for you, Daniel. So if you're saying that this is a big, so sending people who are applying, making sure they're coming to the right definition of co-living. This is something also we've seen it with a company called Ven, and with Celine is another one that's made a pivot actually towards co-living. But Ven co-living kind of has this, it takes over a kind of a neighborhood. There's this idea, and not necessarily strictly to them, but maybe you've got your co-living center where the people live together. They really want that intimate community space, sharing a kitchen. And then you've got another hub half a block down that is more private, where there are private studios, and it's attracting a different kind of clientele, but all loosely affiliated to the same thing. Do we really need to be concerned by that affiliation if we were easily able to create a more loose hub where this is where technology can create community? Because you can bring people together. Hey, we all live in the same neighborhood. I have a bit different needs, but you know what? Hey, I really like, I'd like to come to this, this guy has a band, or you know what? I'm also in a startup. Let's have a startup night coffee chat in our community, or I'm really into crocheting. I'm sure that could break different walls of people's different needs.
Like totally. This is just the logical consequence. And this is also like what we are trying to do with CoCoHub, even though maybe it's too futuristic, but
right, exactly.
If this would be a problem,
think, actually, I think that's also one of the questions we wanted to speak about in this call. And that's, you made just the best transition for this last, I guess, 12 or 13 minutes. So like, let's speak about dating and matching. People like matching digital nomads, like customers with specific co-livings. Daniel told me that like you had some question about this, Nathaniel, and like when he told me that you wanted to interview the customers, for example, to see if they match with a co-living, like I thought it was a nice question and like it made me think a lot. So I think like we could spend the next minute speaking about how we can match people with co-livings.
Right.
so yeah, like I just want to have some insights about like, because I think that's definitely something like the missing part, like how to date between nomads, and also how to match nomads and a space depending on different datas, like KPI of like this is this kind of niche space, I am this kind of nomad, I have these skills, I like these things, and how I can find a software or a tool which could help me to find places which are matching with me.
I mean, I think you guys have much more experience. I have my point of view from, you know, somebody who's you know, trying to make it as simple for the guests as possible. I'm not familiar. I don't know how much this solves. You know, I've always questioned, you know, do I really know that my vetting process is necessary? If I took it away, would I really have less problems or more problems? That's been my question, really. I think it's, you know, I think it's difficult to go in, you know, my role is to educate, because, you know, as long as I create the clear expectations, I think a lot of people can go in and will come to their own conclusions on their own, right? If I go, hey, you know what, this co-living space, they told me, you know, they're all singers and dancers, and, you know, you're a software developer who hasn't spoken to anyone in 3 years, just to let you know. I mean, just want to let you know, but that doesn't mean that could be the perfect situation that everybody's going to respect each other even more, you know? I mean, I have a degree in theater. I mean, you put 5 actors together in a house. I don't think that that's a very good idea after 3 months from experience. we might have a lot in common, but it might be the problem. So it's tough. What do you guys do now? Does it work? Your systems work now?
I mean, what we advise to people who are just starting out with their own co-living, we tell them hop on a Skype call and then go by the gut feeling.
The gut feeling.
Yeah, the
but
gut
I
feeling.
definitely think that there is a gap, and there is a way to find and build communities out of this, like having some kind of similar interest or algorithm, even if it's just soft things, like we are not creating a Tinder for nomads, but we are just trying to find out how to make nomad fitting with a certain community also, depending on the mood or depending on some things. And yeah, like that's something we see in real life. Like actually we meet a lot of people, and like for example, when we have nomads coming to joining the telegram groups, then you start chatting and you can start to get to know people, but we still don't have yet this software where you could find out on the website, for example, different match between the things.
Yeah, but maybe also it's too futuristic.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to have the fundament first, and then based on this fundament, you can build different applications.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just too soon. The properties are not there to be that specific.
There's other questions involved. There's also ethical questions there. I mean, creating an algorithm about who would fit into your community opens up a lot of ethical, particularly in today's world. Yeah. So I'm personally, that's always been my biggest concern, is I think it's better to create clear education, expectations of what this community is about. But then to start saying whether, you know, it's more about what the community is offering and letting them know, letting that client come to you other than the other way around. That could be a bit, and I think moving forward in the world we live in, I don't think it's the most progressive way to move forward.
You know, I don't know. I feel like algorithms are good at collecting data, at processing data, sometimes forecasting, if you think about the way that artificial intelligence is being used. But I don't think they're good at making decisions. Like all of the automated systems that I've come across tend to be extremely dangerous and blow up in people's faces.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, if you are going to go down the road of technology, and this is something I teach all of my juniors at work, like use technology for what it's good at, but never forget to keep a human in the loop, right? Like it's great. Do your analysis and figure out, yeah, vegans and hunters are probably not good in the same room just because of the way people smell, and people are very sensitive. I don't know. But
that's a really good point. That's a great example of how you can build a community with clear expectations based on food.
But still,
but that's still not necessarily.
I've learned a lot living from vegans.
That's not necessarily adequate either. I mean, where I live like in the Swedish countryside, like literally in like farm country, like a significant portion of the country's meat is grown here, or well raised here. But hunting is really common, and you can actually get vegans and hunters and certain meat farmers that get along out here.
My point was just that the algorithm is probably going to say, oh gosh, no, don't do it. But still, you have to have a human involved in that decision-making process. That's all I wanted to say. I mean,
right.
And of course, there's other vectors you could choose. Like you could say a Republican Democrat if you're in the U.S., or violent criminal past and
I would be very conservative about using things like that, because those kind of trends also change, and you don't want to be the one to be perpetuating polarization by encouraging people to really just stick to their own echo chambers, whether that's physical or online. And when it comes to a co-living space, it can actually be quite beneficial to mix them.
Yeah, like we share the same opinion. It's also fun to see different cultures interacting with each other, and this is maybe also the role of the community manager. So the takeaway could be that we should use technology in order to increase the efficiencies of a co-living operation in order to bring down the price, to make it attractable to a broader audience, and not to fell better decisions. And there are so many things which can be automated in the co-living industry. Marketing and how to lead generation, how to find your customer. It's a huge energy waster, and in the end, the clients have to pay for this inefficiency. And if Anyplace save this is nice. And also the community management. What do we do this week, and who wants to take part in which activity? It's a huge inefficiency. If this is solved by software, nice. And this is how we get more and more efficient and bring down the price. And then you can talk about co-ownerships of properties, but this is like 10 years, 20 years from now. That's what I have to say about technology. We have 3 minutes left, but I think it was a brilliant talk, even though it sounds boring what Anyplace is doing, being an Airbnb for co-living. No, it's like we were thinking about doing this, but then we were like, oh, this topic is far too boring and far too complex because different currencies, different legislations. But still, it's such a fundamental problem because this needs to be solved on the way. And I hope that you will manage, because it's a bottleneck. It's a bottleneck. Yeah. So I hope
I haven't even talked about my bottlenecks, but we'll get there one day.
Sorry, say it again.
So we haven't even spoken about the real bottlenecks, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Yeah.
Yeah. The future is great, it's complex, and still it's an open play field. Like everyone can contribute. The industry is not set, it's really fluent, and it's interesting to see also the different cultures coming together. American definition, which brings also the traction, because clearly this brings traction to the industry, and our way of doing things, which brings maybe more values or whatever. So it's a good mix to combine different things. We just need to see how we include the Indian definition of co-living, because they also have their...
That's an important one. Yeah.
They are coming from the student accommodation, I think, boarding houses, they called this. And now, boom, co-living.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to say something to finish the call, Nathaniel? Or
Yes.
yeah,
It was really a pleasure to speak to all of you. I didn't maybe get a sense of what you guys are all operating exactly. I'd love to connect again. So please reach out to me. I'd love to carry a conversation one-on-one or virtual chat anytime. There's a lot to learn from each other, and definitely we want to be a part of that learning process over the next couple of years. So please feel free to reach out. I'd love to chat.
nice. And to all the people
Nathaniel.
who are opening co-living spaces and don't want to take care of the accounting, invoice creation, availability management. It's complex. I can encourage you to sign up with Anyplace because I know how much work it is and I don't want to do this. It's a lot. Yeah.
So it is.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I will upload the video so everyone else can watch it too. And see you soon.
Yeah,
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks for organizing it. This was awesome.
Right.
Thanks. Absolutely.
Ciao.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.